Hello, hello, hello. We are back. Wow. After episode 1, we decided to do another. So we must have been happy with it somewhat. Welcome to the second episode of the One Pixel Out podcast. I'm your host, James, and I am joined by my friends, ex-colleagues, Mikey, Steve, Dave. Do you guys want to say hi?
Hello, hello.
Hi.
Short, we will not go through the intros as we did last week. So if anybody wants to know a little bit more about us, then please go back to episode 1 and you can catch up on that kind of stuff. But just as a little bit of a reminder, this is for digital product designers chewing the fat over stuff that's happening in our space in the world of digital product design. So hopefully you find this kind of stuff interesting and you're in the right place. And if not, maybe go and listen to another podcast about fishing or building things out of wood. I don't know. But this is definitely the right place to be if you're interested in product design chat and what's going on in our industry. Bit of an update. We are still not editing this podcast, so this is very much a free format. We will potentially hear some swear words, or you might hear some swear words, so just be aware of that. It's currently school holidays, possibly best not to have this on in the car if you're driving to Skegness with the kids in the back, just in case. But yeah, other than that, we're going to have a quick conversation probably for the next 30 or so minutes. We've got a topic that we're going to cover off. Won't reveal that just yet, but we will come up with the original sort of idea of just a quick kickoff question, I guess. And this one, guys, I woke up quite early in the middle of the night last night. It must have been about 4:30 in the morning. And I was just so excited, I think, for recording our second episode of the podcast. And I was thinking, what could I do for the kickoff question this time? And I was thinking, well, what's relevant, what's been happening at the moment, what's in the news, and how can I potentially choose something which is a little bit left field? So, Oasis are back. That's been a thing recently. They've been playing their comeback gigs, and Oasis, I think I was at music college when Oasis was first kind of like kicking around mid to late 90s. But also around that time was another musical force, which was not to be stopped. So I will go with you, Mikey, to start with. What's your favourite Spice Girls song?
Two Becomes One, I think.
Two Become What, the sexy one?
I
think that was Christmas number 1, right?
Wasn't that Christmas number 1? Yeah, I think it's because I was on holiday. I think we've gone to Wales. There was a ski slope. And I just remember it playing a lot on the radio. And also it's Wales, so we had a lot of electricity cuts. It was dark and it was freezing, so we just had radio at one point in darkness.
I wondered where that was going to go.
Yeah, so it's either trying to play cards, and then next thing you can't even see him, but all you can hear is "When to become one." I was like, all right, that's my answer.
Okay, fair one, good one. It's at least it's a number 1. Steve?
I think the only song I can think of is...
Oh, he's too cool for it.
Sorry.
Well, you always knew Steve. Steve was always the one with the really cool Spotify playlist at work where he was like, I've got no idea who any of these people are.
Yeah, if it's not got a saxophone and he's not interested.
What's that one? What's the song that goes,
sing it, please?
Really, really wanna zing.
Wanna be, yeah.
Wanna be, yeah. That's the one that
was the first.
I wouldn't say it's my favourite, but it's the one that I remember.
Yeah.
But
Dave?
The wrong reasons.
Yeah, I can't.
You can choose the same one, by the way, but I guess it would be quite a challenge. Can we name 4 separate Spice Girls songs?
I don't think
Yeah.
I'm acting like I never got the album now, but I can't remember. I'd have to go with the same one as Steve. What was it called? Steve Wannabe. That's the only little jingle I remember.
It is. We're not going to get a sponsorship from the Spice Girls, are we? That's for sure.
No.
I think it's this one called Mama or something like that.
Yeah. I've not chosen mine yet. You can come in with your Spice Girls trivia.
I'm too excited. I was like, 4, I'll do 10.
My favourite, I think it might have been their second release, Say You'll Be There. And if you remember, they had the video was them out in some kind of like, I don't know, Arizona style flat.
Oh, yeah, I remember that video.
That was, I think that musically, that was because I was at music college at the time. I was into heavy metal. there was a lot of talk about the credibility of the Spice Girls and their music, but I actually thought that was a really, really good song. But yeah, Mikey, if you want to kind of fill in the gaps after the first album.
Yeah, Mikey, give me a breakdown. What does that mean?
I'm waiting for I went to their farewell gig.
Did you?
Yeah, I'm going to blame Emma, but I went there. I also went to Girls Wild's farewell gig as well, I think.
Nice.
Emma never went to them.
No. What's weird is I'm into Screamo, I'm into metal as well, and I'm like, oh, let's go. Can't wait. This is recorded, right?
I've learned so much more about you today, Mikey.
Well, this is the intention of these little quick questions, Steve, just to get things warmed up. But I think it will be really nice for us and the audience of our families and friends so far to find out a little bit more about us through these questions. Yeah, nobody's got a Papa John's t-shirt on yet, so a little bit.
Yeah,
That's a chip deal over the line. But Steve, you were looking through our Miro board of potential topics and things to look at, and you've picked one that you thought might be quite apt or appropriate, or at least just something which you've realised is might be useful to some people for us to discuss this time round. So do you want to kick us off? And
well, we thought it was very current. I mean, we had a bit of a preamble before we hit record. So we've been thinking about how to stand out in a tough job market, specifically as a UX designer. So yeah, I'm gonna cast that out over to. We'll start with Mikey. Just fundamental thoughts. What you
I'll tell you what, just before you start, Mikey, I was thinking if anyone's going to have a real strong take on this subject, it is the man that's probably been to more interviews, had more jobs than all three of us combined. So this is the real deal.
Hold on, let me preface.
Is this a good start point? Do you want
I was a consultant and now I'm a contractor, so it's not just like I jump jobs. I'm like, I've done a week here. I'm done. I've done all I can here. I've maxed. I think this topic is a really interesting one, right? Because it is hot right now. Anyone who uses LinkedIn can see the market's at an interesting time. I do think it's on its way up at the moment, but I do think it's a very tough market. And I didn't actually realize how many designers there are. Internationally, with remote, obviously you get to see more designers. It's not just local ones. But saying that, I think it's quite hard, because we were discussing in the pre-ramble about how different it is to when I first applied for a job. Because I think when my first job was at a newspaper company, and they were very in their infancy around web. So the job applications were maybe 4 to 10 people at the most. I'm sure you can whittle it down to who it is as well, based in Leeds. Building's not down now. And I imagine they were just looking. I do know they were just looking for more personality and so on to train up, which I obviously fitted because I got it. But I don't know whether that is still the case now. I don't know whether people want people that can hit the ground running, and I think it's easier because of the job market, and also you can be a bit more selective now because there's more applicants. I'm just coming up with problems here, no solutions. But I'm going to switch it to Dave.
That just sort of let you run out of steam and you had enough.
You're fine there, Mikey. You're fine. There's more goodness to come.
Well, there is maybe, but I don't want to take
it back, aren't you, Mikey? That's all right. Yeah, there's more.
So when you mentioned this topic, I was thinking about something that I do outside of work. So I don't have external mentoring. One of the most common things that I get through that is people asking me to look at the portfolio, people asking me to look at the CV. It's usually people wanting to get into the industry. It's usually people wanting to move from like junior roles into like mid-level roles and stuff like that. What I see through a lot of the portfolios is a very, very similar case studies, very, very similar portfolios. The majority have potentially done like online courses, like potentially like a Google course or some other sort of learning, and they're all very familiar. They've all got like a double diamond process, which is great. But there's never anything about the actual person in there. There's never anything like an intro slide. It's all very, very same. potentially different colours. You've got
Yeah.
the same process. So thinking of a hiring manager when I was looking through these, how are they going to stand out? There's like not enough personality in there. A lot of the time there's no metrics either when you get to the end of it. So that's what I see a lot of. And I think that's what I've been helping a lot of people with, is like, how can you do a bit more storytelling? Like, how can you grab somebody's attention early on? What can you say a little bit about yourself? I always encourage that, like at the start of like a case study or portfolio, introduce yourself a little bit, like your passions. Because when I'm going to be looking for a fit, I'm going to be looking for like what kind of person it is as well. Like, fantastic, there's like a template process sometimes.
Yeah.
You can show that you know from discovery through to delivery, like where's the metrics, where's the impact? Can I look at that portfolio without you taking me through it and understand it, like telling a story? So that's a lot what I see through like the mentoring session. That's what a lot of the time I spend with these people, trying to improve their portfolios a little bit.
I love that, Dave. There's something that really stood out to me there. You used the word passion. That's something I've been thinking a lot about. I think finding your passion and figuring out how to get paid for it isn't just a cliche. I think it's it's almost like a practical career strategy. So when I left the betting industry, I made a deliberate list of the broadcasters and VOD companies that I admired, just driven by a genuine ambition to learn more about that industry. So that focus became my compass. So I think I love that. And I think, you know, in order to stand out, you need a bit of that, don't you? You need to kind of like find that passion. I'm trying to think of that classic Steve Jobs quote, the only way to do great work is to love what you do. That's always something that resonated with me. So yeah, like I think identifying a niche that excites you is really important, whether that's sports, documentaries, Papa John's, you know, what gives you to enjoy, you know, what topics make you want to dig a bit deeper.
Subliminally doing it.
Can we go to Papa
Right.
John's after this and try and get some
Yeah.
advertisement? And
I truly believe that though, Dave. When you're thinking about the breadth of all the, you know, the cover letters and CVs that you're going through, I think if you've got a degree of passion that anchors that, you know, passion fuels expertise, and expertise will eventually open doors.
yeah,
So it's
well,
it's really important, I think, and it goes hand
that's it, isn't it? I think we
Yeah.
spoke about that, Steve. Like when we've been looking for new roles and stuff in the past, like why do you want to work there? Like what sort of company do you want to work for? And that's something that I always ask. What's the motivation for wanting to take that job? And something that I think we've spoken about before as well is, if there's no jobs at that company that you want to work for, can you connect? Can you reach out to the design at those companies? But have a coffee chat, just see what it's like to work there, see what they do on a day-to-day basis. Like a lot of them will give you a little bit of time. And then when any roles do come up at that company, you might have introduced yourself, you might have got a network now where you might be first on that list to be contacted.
Yeah, I love it. Go on, James. What are you thinking, mate?
Yeah, I'm just writing stuff down. It is an interesting one, because if you just look at the question of like, what do you do to stand out? You can stand out intentionally or unintentionally in a positive or a negative way, right? And I'm also trying to think about it in terms of like what I just wrote down there. Is it actually about standing out in this sense, getting noticed, getting your foot in the door? Or is it about potentially, you know, when you're looking for, you know, a job, whether that's the start of your career or you're looking to move jobs, you know that you are going to be up against a number of other people, and it's about how do I get the attention of the hiring manager or the person that gets to make the decision. I think all those potentially have got different solutions. When I was awake in the early hours last night, some of the things that kind of went across my mind were, and do not take this as advice, anyone that's listening right now, but someone did once tell me, like, you know, if you want to have a job or you'd like to get a job somewhere, like, there's nothing wrong with actually just going to the place and asking them if they have a job.
Yeah.
Now, that's really difficult in certain situations, right? If you wanted to go into, I don't know, if there's a shopping center near you and you wanted a Saturday job working, you know, as a store assistant or behind the tills, you could probably just walk in and say, have you got any jobs? Or you might take in your CV. And I think that's kind of how things used to happen in the olden days. Or it was basically, you know, you look for jobs in newspapers, right? I don't want to seem like an absolute dinosaur, but I do have a story around this. It's like whilst I was in my first job, I knew that I was looking to make a move, and I'd been there for about 3 or so years. And I noticed that there was a small design studio in the same town where I was working in my first job. And I just literally did go on a lunch hour with my CV, just knocked on the door. And I ended up speaking to the guy that ran the business. And he invited me in, we had a bit of a chat, etc. Now, I didn't get the job, so that's where that falls down. But what did happen was, when I had moved and did get move on from that first job into my second role, within maybe a month or two of being there, so this could have been 3, 4, 5, 6 months before I'd seen him, he actually phoned me up and said, I'm now in a situation where potentially I do actually have a role available. Just before it wasn't the right time, but I'm looking for this type of thing. And I ended up actually getting a job for my best mate, because I listened to what he was looking for. I said, but yeah, that's not me. Plus I've also, got a new job, but I actually do know somebody that might be able to do that for you. So, sometimes these things kind of work out, but appreciate that's probably a very slim thing. The other thing was,
James, just on that, would you say there's the thing that really stood out to me was that kind of like human connection and actually putting yourself forward in that situation?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't go to, I know lots of places do job fairs, right? And I know certainly when we were at Sky Betting and Gaming, our internal recruitment team did a lot of work going out to specific, festivals or tech events or whatever. Yeah. Having a presence, speaking to people, whether they be graduates or people that are, in any stage of their career and potentially looking for a move or interested in getting involved in our business. I do think that helps, because it's a bit like many things right now. Everything is so digitized, whether that be, I don't know, online dating or applying for jobs. You don't get to the people anymore, right? There's too many steps, gateways, or people that are in the way for you to actually get in front of someone and show someone what you're about. I think most people, we've all hired people or at least been in interviews. I think we can probably tell relatively quickly from an engagement or social interaction with somebody whether they're going to be a good fit, or it's not necessarily, I can tell that guy's really good at his job just by looking at his face, but it's like, but there's like that reassurance of, okay, this person, I feel like I can trust this person, and that they speak a certain way, or they seem to be knowledgeable, etc., etc. So yeah, I think that's a really interesting point, Steve, the fact that the physical thing, I think that's just much harder to achieve nowadays. But one thing that I did see a couple of instances across the years were people that just try to think a little bit differently to do that thing of standing out. So if everybody else is just sending in CVs, it's a bit like, when if you ever used to, people used to use business cards in the old days, and everyone would have their business cards sort of like landscape. And then occasionally you'd meet somebody that had done it like portrait design or something. And it's things like that you remember. So I used to think to myself, right, I really want to work at this place. I think what I might do is I might go somewhere, get a photograph taken of me, like full size, get it made into a cardboard cutout, get it sent to their office, and then just do some kind of like snappy marketing line of like, imagine me working at your place type of thing. Like, and it's almost like, I don't know, like if you are a designer, there's possibly an element that you've got an element of creativity within you that, like, just try and see if there's actually something that you might be able to do which is a little bit left field. If it is just literally about standing out, a lot of the time, if you're applying for jobs on LinkedIn or anywhere else, you don't actually know who the hiring manager is. So even just to find that person out, phone that company up, go on LinkedIn, do your research, get their address. It's with all GDPR and all that kind of stuff, possibly really difficult nowadays, but it'd be something I'd consider telling people, like, try and think about something. I seem to remember another somebody doing something around, they created their own website, which was, they used their name. It's like hire, it was a girl, so like, I don't know, example, hire Jennifer or whatever. And that got a lot of traction as well. She'd just taken a different approach in terms of, well, I'm not going to put my CV out to everybody else. I'm going to try and pull traffic into me instead and do it that way. And yeah, I just think you've got to try and get a little bit creative if you can, and just, go through a couple of ideas. You might not have the budget to pull some of these things off, or equally you might. So
no, I really like it. I'm just making a list of some of the things that almost like the fundamentals. So we spoke about finding your passion. James, you alluded to almost like the being prepared, with any role, knowing the company that you're applying for, sweating the details, going beyond what expected, and then that edge of being bold, being specific, being creative. It's almost like if you can make them smile, you're already ahead, aren't you? You're already in the room, letting that personality sort of shine through. It feels like they're a good set of steps, really, to better understand what you want from a role, and I guess, how you can kind of get your foot in the door. I had a similar experience to you as well, James. When I was at uni, there was a module we had called engagement with the industry. So you had to approach a company within the media industry when I was in Leeds at the time to gain experience. And it definitely pushed me out of my comfort zone. I was painfully shy when I was younger. So it really taught me how to initiate conversations and build relationships and understand what employers are actually looking for. But yeah, I think more than anything, it showed me that reaching out, however daunting it feels, is the first step to opening potential doors in the industry. So yeah, I can definitely relate to that experience that you had, James, there, and trying to create that connection. It's hard, but if you can find a unique way around it, it's definitely worth pursuing.
Yeah, and I know that currently the way that the hiring market is, I don't know if it's just specifically for digital product designers or designers in general, or just the market for everybody is difficult. That's probably a separate podcast in itself. There's so many aspects of that we could probably touch on. But I guess to my earlier point, we've all been in interviews where we've interviewed people, or we've had the responsibility that it was our decision to make. Like, I know this is probably putting everybody on the spot, but what I did write down was like, what would if you were in that situation of a hiring manager, like what would actually stand out to you? What would be the things that you probably, I guess, not maybe go in there intentionally wanting to see, but actually when you see it, you go, yeah, that's a real good indicator to me of somebody that I can work with and that can do good work. Because for me, I don't think it would just be the portfolio and the strength of that on its own. It's got to be, yes, you've got the skills to be able to do the job, but there's probably a variety of other skills, and specifically soft skills, I'd probably want to see from someone to go, oh yeah, that person stands out as a good candidate. I'll ask you, Mikey, what if you've got any stories of people that have impressed you?
I've hired in my last permanent role, I think I mentioned it, but we grew from 12 to 40 plus. So I hired people from like academy / career changes. So we ran an academy, and that was literally full of, I guess, people who've just graduated to people who midway through their career, a bit more mature, changing jobs. And what happens is in the academy, I don't know, I'm guessing some of your companies run it. You take on X amount of people get cut after about 8 to 12 weeks. And then after 8 to 12 weeks, they kind of get farmed off into their own industry, like content design, service, whatever. And then kind of expected to go into a place, sometimes you expect them to be ready to work, but you kind of go on and they warm a seat somewhere. Maybe it's a free day rate, that kind of thing. So I run the academy, and then at the end of it, you have to kind of do like a soft interview. It's kind of part of the training, but you're also interviewing them as well. A lot of the time, there is no work. You're stripping everything out there. You kind of, as you're leading the sessions, and then you're kind of sitting back and watching how they react in a team, but also how they react communication-wise. But it is, for me at that point, it was about fit. It was personality. I knew the clients that they would be going into, and they were public sector. They might be tough clients, but we're protecting them from the tough bit. Someone else is the shit umbrella. They're not. So it's all about personality fit for that level. And it was literally, can they work with people? Can they communicate? You don't get to learn that at university. So unfortunately, some people who are fresh out, great people, amazing designers actually, but just couldn't. There's no point having a designer who can't present their work in a salesy way. Whereas when I'm hiring someone who's a senior level or a principal level, it's so different, because it's kind of like by the time they get to me, especially the principal / lead / design manager, whatever, that level, I don't care about their design work to that point, because they've already got through, right? I've already seen their CV. I probably know someone who's worked with them. They can tell me they can draw with a pencil. Good. Great on them. As long as they're a better designer than me, it's fine. But again, at that point, it's comms again. For me, comms are so key, because then it's stakeholder management, and it's also dragging maybe the juniors along. But it's again, I guess it's someone who can handle a tricky client or a tricky situation, but doesn't fold under pressure, but also can like, you have to make it a bit more fun as well. And I think that if you can bring fun into a team, I don't think I've ever hired someone who's deadly serious, in brackets dull. I think I've always hired someone who's got a bit more potential to, drag the room along. They can talk the talk, but me, a designer talk, I don't really love it, but it's that. So it's interesting you mentioned about the word, James. I think I'd never really look at the word, because design is always subjective, isn't it? If it works, it works, right? Users will click a button whether it's grey, but I think it's the fit is so key, so important. And also, I'm always interested in designers that want to give back. If they're not, I'm very interested in like Dave. I know David mentors. I think I would hire David just on that alone, because I think it's a key that always give back. Because once you go to another point, you just got to give back and pass it on and that kind of stuff. And especially in this time, so I think personality is 10 for me. Design is probably like a 4.
I love that, Mikey.
By the way, I'm not grading myself on that.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, like we spend the majority of the time with the people we work with, don't we? Yeah. So yeah,
I think you can. I think even if you were a poor designer, I think that's easier to teach than it is to teach someone who's nice to work with and who can manage a situation in a room under pressure. You can't really teach that. You can teach resilience if you have to, but sometimes you don't have that time. You have to just teach someone who can say, I don't know the answer, and then bring it back to base maybe if they don't know it. It's that kind of thing. Who's comfortable saying I don't know?
And those are all quite well, they're not specific to your industry or the roles that you're behind for. I think those are all quite good sort of global characteristics, personality traits, skills that apply to most people, isn't it? But I do think there's probably a sense that the younger designers will probably focus more on portfolio and work, because that's the start of the journey. And at the start, it literally is a lot about just getting the skills and the chops and being able to show that you can do the job. And I think that sometimes what is the hardest part is that bit. And like you said, to a certain extent, Mikey, when you are further on in your career, that stuff doesn't tend to get analysed as much, because it's perhaps just either expected that you have spent 5-6 years doing that kind of role, that you will be sufficient enough to perform. And yeah, it's an interesting one. How about you, Dave? Have you got anything else that like you would specifically experience, I guess, whether that be in an interview situation or, like what we mentioned before, if you were doing some external sort of like tech event or something like that and speaking to somebody, what kind of things would kind of like get you, not alarm bells ringing, the opposite of what that is, like get you going, this is really enjoying this conversation, this person is good, they're standing out to me as being a good designer or a good potential hire or something?
Yeah, a lot of what people spoke about, I think Mikey had kept my alarm bells ringing.
I think if I said
when he says, you, David, I personally rate my design as a 4, but my personality is a hard 10.
David, I think if we spoke to you, Cupid would be there with his little design arrow, letting go.
But no, so when you're talking about the topic at the start, I was thinking back. So like one of my first ever interviews, it was like for a little bit of design work, but it's more of a front end developer role. I went for the interview, and I remember being asked a question, because I didn't have much skill as a front end developer at that time. I remember being asked a question like, if and you're looking at my experience and you realize that I didn't have that much experience, and it's like, if I wanted you to put this bit of code in here and do this, would you be able to do it? I was like, no, I wouldn't, but I'd be able to find out how to do it very quickly. And he said that, like, after the interview, I didn't get the job, by the way, but after the interview, he did say, like, he said no to a lot of people. He's not going to say no to me today because he likes the attitude, he likes my willingness to learn, he likes how I communicated with him. And I think that's it. It's like, Mikey spoke about it, like, I've got a team. If you come into this team, I've got a team that can teach you Figma. We can upskill you, we can teach you about the design system, we can teach you how to do things in Figma. It's everything else around it. It's the willingness to learn. What's the motivation? Why do you want to work here? Like, how do you communicate with other people? What's the storytelling like? It's a lot of that for me. It's a lot of the soft skills. That's what I look for.
I tell you, Dave, I was really interested because I looked for the same thing. You said it right at the start. Was a lot of even quite high level designers don't do this. They don't talk about the metrics. I really like case studies that tell you. I quite like. I don't mind it when they say we did this, but I need to know what I did. What did I do in the thing? But I really like this bit on a portfolio where they say, they kind of talk around, if I could do it again, what would I change? What did I learn? What went wrong? I'm sure you can remember working. I don't really care too much about the success stories. It's the where did I go wrong? It's that passing on thing. But I think that's really key. And you don't see that hardly at all now. You don't really see the fails anymore because everyone's too frightened, I think, to talk about the fails. But I think metrics is massive, right? I don't care whether you delivered to 10 or whether you delivered to 10 million. I just need to see my output was X and X. And I think that's key. And I don't see that. And you really, to touch on your point, James, around the younger designers, they tend to care around just almost like UI work. You know, what have they done? Here's some photos where, you know, in the old days where people used to say design, you don't need to say anything because the design should tell the story. And it's like, it literally does not tell any story. It's just some flat images. I think it's key that if I was to do a case study now, as a junior designer, I would probably write down, we did this, but this is what I did. This is why I did it. Here's the reason, you know, all of these whys. But more importantly, I want to know what your outputs were. Why were this? Tell me, even if your team was tricky, I can read between the lines at this point. And also, what would you change? And I think that's really key for us to learn. It's not a perfect situation, but they would have done this instead. And they're trying to do a design process, but they've just were stopped.
Yeah, and Mikey, those tricky situations are where you learn, aren't they? You know, they're where you get your biggest learnings, are those sort of really awkward stakeholder situations where you've got a tricky situation to handle. I think that's really where you do sort of cut your teeth. So yeah, I agree with that. That kind of being reflective, whether that's in a job interview or on a portfolio, is really key and really important. Yeah,
that's an interesting point. I was almost just thinking then, like, I guess the consensus is that if you were to apply for a job and put a portfolio together, you want to make everything look like it's worked and been perfect. And in reality, that might not be what somebody's actually looking for.
Yeah.
Would you be daring enough to, on your CV or in your case studies or your portfolio, you know, try and stand out by making it a big deal about how much you fail? But obviously weighing that up with the fact of, I fail so much because I'm willing to try things out, I'm willing to push boundaries, and I'm willing to take those learnings forward, and then list it all as learnings, because that wouldn't be conventional. And if I was a hiring manager and something like that came across my desk, that would stand out. It would make me stop. It would make me think. And therefore, I'd probably be more likely to want to speak to that person to find out more. So yeah, maybe that could be another route that people go down. Just try and flip things upside down. That's another creative technique, right? So yeah, that's what I was thinking. Interestingly, I also remembered that a lot of this, and this is more specifically to do, I guess, like with the interview situation, was if you're in a situation where you are looking to apply for a job, the job description could be thought of as a design brief in a way, right? If you are lucky enough to be applying for a job which has got a good job description, because not all of them do, right? Not go into that, but you know, we've all been around long enough to know that job descriptions can just be, you know, copy and paste jobs of other companies' job descriptions, and you know, a list of bullet points, which sometimes you can read, but it doesn't feel particularly different or special to that particular business or company. It's, you know, all a bit samey. But if you did get a really good job description, if you thought of it as a design brief, and the thing that kind of got me onto this way of thinking was remembering something that I read about George Clooney. And this is ages ago. And knowing that we were having this conversation today, that's only a bit of research I did, which as I went back, because I thought, I know I've got this listed somewhere, and I found it this morning. And it's a web link from something that was posted in 2011. And it was somebody interviewing George Clooney, and it was generally based around failure. And he was talking about how he was a baseball player in school. He had a good arm. I'm actually reading this now, just so you're aware. I could catch anything, but I was having trouble hitting. I would be like, I wonder if I'll hit it. Just let me hit the ball. And that was kind of his mentality, I guess, when he stood up to the plate. And he said he went away for the fall. He learned how to hit. And by his sophomore year, which I don't know if that's the second year, he'd come back to the plate, and then he'd be thinking, I wonder where I want to hit the ball, to the left or to the right. And just that little bit of skill and confidence had changed everything for him. Okay. That wasn't necessarily the nugget that kind of got me thinking. It was this next bit. He talked about having to treat acting like that. Think about actors auditioning for roles. Think about people applying for jobs. Possibly this, you know, similarities to that process. You're going in there, you're basically trying to convince someone that you're the right person for the job, or that you're suitable, that you've got the skills, and make their decision easy. So he basically said, I had to treat acting like that. I had to stop going to auditions thinking, oh, I hope they like me. And he had to go into thinking that he was the answer to their problem. And he said that you could feel the difference in the room immediately. And I kind of phrased that as like, if you're going for a job, like, be the answer to their problem. And that mindset might really sort of like shift things a little bit more. And then that's why I kind of thought, well, yeah, if you've got a good job description, that's kind of the brief. You are the solution. You've just got to try and do the work that matches those two things up in between. And maybe to Dave's point, be able to tell that story as to why your experience or the things that you've done matches what they're looking for. Thought that was a really interesting way to mentally approach it and think about it in that sense, because probably most people might not think about it like that. And yeah, I just thought that was a nice way to maybe go about it, and a different approach. But interested to think what your thoughts are of that.
Go on, Dave. You want to go first?
I was looking at the clock. I thought Mikey was going to try and stop the whole thing.
Not with a quote like that. That was a right.
Yeah, I almost feel like that's a nice way to, like, cherry on top, sort of wrap up the segment, James. You know, in terms of a good little nugget. We've spoke about the fundamentals, and hopefully given some good examples and into what might help stand out in a tough job market in today's world. But yeah, any final thoughts on James's George Clooney angle?
Yeah, just do a George Clooney mic drop. I guess I think the thing was, right,
he's going to sponsor the pod. That's what in his name it might happen. So
I've got a Papa John's quote here.
Papa John's, George Clooney.
Yeah, if you really want to stand out an interview, I think the best thing you can do is take along a Papa John's pizza with you and offer that out to the interviews. I think that would work.
Is there any chance of you? What about if you bring along George Clooney?
Also might work as well, especially
if you spoon everyone. Yeah, just sort of.
If no one watches episode 1, they're going to switch off when we start talking about.
You're going to think this is some kind of George Clooney podcast.
Right, I'm going to bring it back. So the thing is, the difficulty in that is that a lot of the time you're not going to know what exactly it is that they're looking for, because sometimes that's not really obvious and verbalized either in a description. You can't read their minds. You don't necessarily know who it is. But that's possibly your first thing to do, is once you're in a room or on a call with that person, don't be afraid to ask those questions up front and try to kind of qualify what it is, because that's a real good, if anything else, it's like a sales technique. Find out what their problem is and be the solution to that. I'm I've been a hiring manager, as have all of you. I know for a fact hiring people is an absolute time suck, right? You've got so many other things to be doing normally when you're at that level where you're in charge of a team or hiring people, that it takes a lot of your time and attention away from other things that you potentially might need to be doing as well. Not necessarily in a bad way. You need to be able to do it, especially if your team's growing, but it does take quite a lot of effort. And a lot of the time, these people possibly just do want to make a very simple, safe, decision. So the safer you can make that, the most that you can sort of like de-risk it for them, the better I think you will possibly be in that situation. So yeah, even just that, taking that mindset into that approach, maybe being able to try and ask those qualifying questions if it's not clear to you at the beginning, and adapt your answers or whatever. And I said, like, this is very specific, like maybe an interview scenario. It's not necessarily about that very first thing about standing out, but certainly I would imagine if somebody came into the room and I was looking to hire them and they were ticking all the boxes, and I just thought, yeah, this guy literally is just going to, this guy or gal is literally just going to be able to do everything I ask of them, and it's going to be fine, then I think you just make that job easy for them. That's also another thing to try and bear in mind. So yeah,
I think it summarizes quite well some of the principles we've been talking about today as well, in terms of being confident, having a good attitude, being a good team player as well, and being able to convey a good story. So yeah, I do like that, James. I think it feels like a nice nugget to potentially end on. Unless there's anything else we want to chat about, chaps. But I am conscious Mikey's going to have to bail in -5.
This is true.
I thought it was -9 minutes ago. That's why I said it at the end of that.
Yeah.
Oh, have we run past over your time, Mikey? This is
I have.
Very polite, Mikey.
Well, yeah, it's because it's a George Clooney quote. It came out of nowhere. I was like, I'd like to talk more about it, but I can't. Just leave that as a carrot.
Apologies. We'll let you get onto your other life commitments then. And yeah, thanks everybody for listening. And we'll wrap up another episode of One Pixel Out, and hopefully see you again soon for episode 3. Let's all say bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Well.